Okay, so hi, it's me, Robert Anthony again. And you'll remember in my previous video, I outlined the incredible commission structure at $35 that you would make on 100 if you're a sending florist, and the incredible loss that you would be under by being a receiving florist. Now, I also know that, remember I talked about artists and the math. Well, my math was wrong there. It should have been $20, not a negative 20. Should have been a negative 20, not a negative 21. So, my daughter pointed that out to me when we were done filming. So anyway, what I want to do is I'm going to outline here for you, this is what happens when an order is placed through any one of the order gathering websites. And an order gathering website would be any institution that doesn't have a technical flower shop. Now, with that being said, I know that 800 Flowers has a ton of almost like a franchise type shop across the country because their vision is becoming so big that they become a national florist where you call them and they just send it to their flower shop. That's their vision, okay? They're not very far down that road. They have a lot of shops in California, and they actually have one or two here in Orlando, surprisingly. FTD, not FTD, just as a sending house is what they do. So what happens is let's look at this a little bit from a math standpoint. I'm getting my green marker out, okay? The order gatherer takes your order for $100, okay? They charge you, I'm gonna say $15. So you've spent $115 is what you've spent at the order gatherer, okay? Just by going direct to a florist, you'll save the 15, but let's also take into those numbers, let's take into account the commission structure that we talked about earlier. Okay, so to get back to what we were talking about, we had to answer the phone. You've spent $115. Here's one of the little inside secrets of our business that nobody's supposed to know about. This is a pretty big deal, okay? And flower shops will deny that this happens. But I've seen it happen when I was working for other flower shops. So it does happen. My grandfather and my father would never operate by this standard, and neither do I, which is why we don't belong to the wire services anymore. But here's what happens, okay? Forget the 15. The order gatherer sends down here to your local florist the $100, okay? Keep in mind, in today's commission world, I'm gonna round it, but I'm gonna tell you that that florist is only receiving $70. Now, the wire service ethics standard says they have to fill that order for $100, even though they're losing $30. And remember from my model before, they're at negative 20. If they're operating a profitable flower shop, they're at negative 20. That's what they're losing. So they send an order, here, goes to here, this is your local florist, here's a window at the top, here's a door. People are shopping in there. It's $70 now. Your 100 has suddenly become 70, is what's happened. Because here's what they do that they don't tell you. The florist will say, well, I can't make money, because they figure out, well, I love getting these order gatherer orders because there's so many of them, but we're not making any money. So what they do, and this is where the problems come in that my grandfather and my other friend talked about, they fill the order for $70. So you spend $115. 100 plus the $15, some of them are as high as 20. Let's say it's $115. You spend $115, you're getting a $70 bouquet because the florist skims. The word that they use is skim. They skim off the top. And again, they're not supposed to do it, and if they get caught, they're going to be evicted, all that other stuff. Prove it. Nobody can prove that that's happening, other than, they're following around doing the math on all the bouquets, but then they can just say, well, that's what we, well, there's not enough roses in the arrangement. Well, we charge more for roses because we're in Chicago. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that they would say. They cost more here than they do down there. So anyway, all right. So the bouquet, actually, if you take the commission into account, you have spent $45 to get it's cost you $45 to send this order. You spent $115, that's your loss. So in essence, you've actually spent $145 to get a puny bouquet. I don't know about you, but I hope that starts to make sense as to why it's a problem for our industry. Because this is a common problem that we hear, and we heard it over Mother's Day. People that had ordered flowers from an order gatherer and they couldn't believe how horribly small the arrangement was for what they sent. That happens all over the country, every day, all the time. That's a big deal. That's a huge negative blight on our business, okay? Consequently, or I should say conversely, we go to Google. I want to find a florist that delivers flowers in Kissimmee. All you gotta do is do a Google search. You then can look at the Google reviews, and it's pretty easy to see who the local florists are and who are not, because Google has a thing called pay-per-click advertising. And so what happens is, these guys are all starting to figure out, customers now, back when these guys became a deal, the internet existed, Google didn't even exist. The search engines were AOL, Lycos, Yahoo, and a few others, okay? Google is the Mac Daddy, king of the universe as it relates to searches. They now are enabling me and you and all of us as consumers to better search for product. Our industry is one of the most unique industries because you can't order flowers on Amazon and have them shipped and delivered. You need a florist because it's a perishable product. You need a florist in the local market to be able to fulfill that order. But here's the great thing about it. You call the florist, you give them $100, there's no service fee, there's going to be a delivery fee, and you can decide if you want the delivery to come out of your 100 or if you want to go on top of your 100. But all of a sudden, because you went through Google, found a florist locally in Kissimmee that had reviews that you liked, and it's clear that they're a local business because Google does an outstanding job of maximizing local results, because Google's whole mission, according to their book, which I read about the founding of the company, is to give users the most useful and accurate search results. That's why they're so big, because that was their mission from the beginning when they started in a garage at Stanford University. That's their whole purpose. Well, if one of these guys advertises, buy local flowers now, which I'll show you in a subsequent video to this one, buy local flowers now, if Google hasn't done a good job of ferreting out, these guys are actually advertisers and not a local florist, Google is going to not exist because people are going to get frustrated with getting ripped off like this is what's going to happen. So Google does a great job of showing you who the local florist is and where you're getting your flowers from. And most florists have a decent website now. Web technology, the way that it is, they can. The bottom line is, your $100 that you spend at your florist, it's $100 freaking dollars. It's not $70. It's not costing you $45. Dollar for dollar, $1 to $1, it's $100. Now, I'm a florist, so, naturally, I want to keep my 7% net profit. But part of the reason that we will not belong to these institutions is because of this problem. Not to mention the fact that when you belong to one of these institutions, you have to pay exorbitant membership fees. And one of the things that bothers me about florists take these orders because they're easy. They don't have to advertise and the orders just flow in. As soon as they become a member, the orders start flowing in. They don't have to work for it. They don't understand the math. So to them, it's like, oh, this is great business. Here's the problem with that. The problem with that is that you're losing money and you're paying your competitor to advertise against you by paying marketing fees. I'm sorry, not marketing fees, membership dues to these entities, and you can't believe all the other fees these companies charge the florist to be a member. They take all that money and they advertise in the marketplace to take the order away from you and send it back to you minus a 30% commission. Now, how stupid is that? Well, in today's world, we go direct, Google, florist, Kissimmee, $100. You get your value, which is ultimately my biggest concern, is that you're getting your best value for the money. And the florist is actually able to stay open to help you for your wedding flower needs and your sympathy flower needs and all of the needs that require flowers that these places can't fill. They can't. And the only place that all these order gatherers can get their orders filled is a local florist. And it's, without getting too much into it, if florists all decided to quit taking their orders, they'd close up shop the next day. But because it's such easy money and florists don't understand how much money they're losing, there's always going to be somebody that will pardon the phrase, whore themselves out for selling flowers, because that's exactly what it is. They'll take anybody now. Remember when I talked about in 3 or 4 videos ago, FTD was the gold standard and you had to be at the upper end of your craft to be a member of FTD? Not so anymore. If you have a garage and you're selling flowers out of your garage and you're willing to pay the membership fees, they will take you as a member and start sending orders to you. That's what the industry has come to, and that's exactly what my grandfather was talking about, that this is going to kill the industry when FTD was sold. Because FTD was the leader when they were sold in establishing this whole business model. So, in my next video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my computer screen and I'm going to show you how to successfully search for a florist in the local area that you need to be at so that you will avoid the trap and the pitfall of running across an order gatherer website inadvertently, because there's nothing that says that they can't say local flowers delivered, which I will explain in the next video. Thanks again for stopping by. Tell your friends.